Welcome back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. We turn our attention to medical matters right now. Now, Thursday, the 5th of May, marks World Pulmonary Hypertension Day. It's estimated that 75 million people worldwide suffer from pulmonary hypertension. However, that could be higher in reality, as PH is frequently misdiagnosed or not even diagnosed at all. And with us this morning to chat more about this condition, and I think an opportunity to spread some awareness, is pulmonologist and head of pulmonology division at UCD Academic Hospital, Dr. Greg Simon. Doc, great to have you here.
Thanks, Graham.
This is an interesting one because it's a term that you hear so often, but I think a lot of people don't fully understand what it is. So please, can you, in the most basic terms possible, explain to us what is pulmonary hypertension?
I think it's a great place to start. Good question. PH, it's a rare disease. So everyone's familiar with systemic hypertension. Everyone talks about hypertension, diabetes. The pulmonary circulation is a low pressure circulation, relatively low pressures. And this rare disease is an affliction of that pulmonary circulation where the pressures go very high. So normal pulmonary pressures are around 20, and we have some patients with pressures over 100.
And what does that do to the system and to the heart?
It puts tremendous strain on the heart, and it's really tough for patients because they just present with, the main presentation is breathlessness. Now, lots of things will cause breathlessness. Being anemic, thyroid problems, heart failure, and often, and this is one of the conundrums with PH, is that it's misdiagnosed. It's diagnosed very late. The mean time, the average time to diagnosis is about 2 years, both overseas and with us. Wow. So it's a long time before patients get the right diagnosis.
That being said, and I suppose you spend most of your days scratching your head trying to look for answers to the bigger questions, but that being said, how do we then identify those symptoms, or what should that warning bell be that we need to, as early as possible, get checked out?
So the shortness of breath, as I said, is a very protein manifestation. Lots of people have shortness of breath for different reasons, but I think for me, raising awareness, and this is where the Jenna Lowe Foundation comes in, raising awareness of a very rare disease which presents with very non-specific symptoms to make early diagnosis. If we can get early diagnoses, we can start treatment early, and then the outcomes are relatively good. We can prevent progression of disease. So raising awareness of a disease which is uncommon, raising clinician awareness to think about this disease. It's taught very poorly in medical school.
I suppose it's got to be front of mind for you, and with something that is so rare. I hear you talk about managing the condition. As I understand it, there is no cure. How then do we manage the condition, and what is the outlook for a patient who is able to receive the right kind of treatment in time?
So again, great question. So before 95, there were no treatments. And since then, there's been an explosion of drugs, a plethora. We have almost 30 drugs now available to us, which we use either singularly, but generally in combination, and new combinations are coming out the whole time. And before, PH was a death sentence. You died from this disease within 5 years. Now we have patients 15 years on appropriate therapy, no disease progression, preventing transplantation, and really how long, we don't know, because we don't have the drugs for long enough. The major barrier to treatment is cost. I mean, some of these drugs, you're looking at R1 million a year.
Wow.
They're life-saving drugs, they sustain quality of life, they improve quality of life, they keep people at work and with their families. So they really are fantastic agents, but they're prohibitively expensive, which is a problem.
I know it's not specifically your field, but how do we then go about addressing this? When you, in your heart of hearts, when you think about a solution to this particular conundrum, what do you think is the way forward?
I think that's a very challenging question. I think advocacy is first and foremost. We have to have patient advocacy driving awareness, trying to lower prices and access to care. We need access programs. These drugs are expensive. They are not for everyone, and particularly in our environment where we are resource limited, we can't escape that fact. We then have to prioritize and risk stratify patients according to the most needy and I think age, to be fair. So we've got to do the most we can for our younger patients. But having said that, we shouldn't be ageist either. But every opportunity should be made to get as many patients onto appropriate drugs, cheap drugs, as we can.
I mean, that covers so many different areas in your space. So let's end this with one last thought for anyone out there. And I know it's such a rare thing, but it's something that we do need to consider. What do we need to have in our own mind as an alarm bell when it comes to the heart, not necessarily just with this particular condition with with the heart health, when do we need to be worried? When should we go and see a doctor? And what is that first step we should do?
So I think in light of COVID, I think it's just highlighted breathlessness. If you have unexplained breathlessness, please don't sit at home. Don't wait. It's going to get better. Seek medical attention and raise it with your practitioner. Just ask the question, could it be pH? Could I have heart failure? Raise the questions within your rights to say, what about this? And explore the options. If you have unexplained breathlessness with relatively normal routine investigations, it needs to be considered.
Please consider it, and don't be afraid of your medical practitioners or the hospitals. It is safe for us to go back.
Yes,
they are
safe.
working very long shifts to ensure that that is so. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Light on this. And I don't know if it's the right thing to say, but enjoy the next couple of days. I know there's going to be a firm focus on what you're trying to achieve in a greater sense. So hopefully more people will push towards that ultimate goal. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Graham.
Really interesting discussion with Dr. Greg Simons, a pulmonologist and head of the pulmonology division at UCT Academic Hospital. And we'll continue this medical discussion in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to our Health Tuesday discussion this morning. Now, in honor of World Pulmonary Hypertension Day, which is commemorated on the 5th of May, the Jenner Low Trust and the Pulmonary Hypertension Association of South Africa are joining 80 other organizations from across the globe to raise awareness around this life-threatening illness. And here to tell us more about the trust and the incredible work that they are doing, the vital work that they are doing, is the director of the trust of the Jenner Low Trust. It is Gabby Lowe. Gabby, great to see you.
Morning.
A crazy couple of years have passed since you last connected with our viewers. How are you? How is the trust? Where are you in the world now that we are starting to emerge from COVID? I would imagine with a renewed sense of vigor about what you need to achieve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for asking.
Good.
Very well. It's 3 years since the book launched, and it is now nearly 7 years since we lost Jen to pulmonary hypertension. So 7 long, tough years, but we're doing really well, thank you. And the trust is going from strength to strength. So the Jenner Low Clinic at Grooterskloof, you just met Dr. Greg.
He's a gem.
Absolute gem. He is a gem.
Yeah.
We now have just under 500 patients registered at the Jenner Low Clinic, which is just extraordinary when you think that when Jen was first diagnosed in 2017, we knew of hardly anyone in South Africa with pulmonary hypertension. So that is not the truth. The truth is people are going undiagnosed.
It's hidden, yeah.
It's hidden.
That's crazy. Well, there were no drugs until 1995, apparently, for this, which shows
Correct.
how young the progression of treatment in this space is.
Yeah.
500 patients you are currently helping for. As I understand it from Dr. Simons, the costs of just the medication alone are massive.
Big problem.
I would imagine the infrastructure, the support for families, especially low-income families in this space. So all of that being said, what are you trying to get right in terms of your balance? What does the foundation actually do to provide support, and how can we help?
Well, so what we do is we've started the clinic. So this happens 2 Thursdays a month, and it's a center of care for pulmonary hypertension patients, because the problem is very often it falls between the 2 silos of pulmonology and cardiology, because it impacts both the lungs and the heart, right? So we had a massive problem when Jen was ill in finding the right expertise. But now patients can go to one clinic where all of the expertise is in one place.
There.
So that we also advocate a lot to try and get drugs into the country, because many of the treatments are not registered in South Africa. But now we have many more registered, but we're not there yet. We've got a long way to go. And a lot of those drugs are very expensive. What the trust also does is raise funds to buy equipment, because there's very expensive equipment that patients need to be on when they deteriorate and get bad in the end stages of the disease. Things like mobility scooters, oxygen machines, etc. So we fund those very expensive pieces of equipment. And then we do a lot around education, brochures, flyers, getting information out there, not just to patients but to GPs. We're holding a big webinar, educational webinar in October, and hoping to run a patient-led conference or symposium in May next year.
I'm so glad you said that, because, and it's in no way compares to the space that you are operating in, but I've been a patient for the better part of 2 years, dealing with another condition that's minor in this case. But that feeling of not being treated, of having a condition and no one really being able to give you an answer. And if in my case that was frustrating, I can only imagine how soul-destroying that must have been in your journey for those most difficult years in that space. To someone who is suffering with this condition right now, to the people around them, what do you say to them? And in a practical sense, how do you manage this beast? And how did you manage to get to the point that you are?
You know, that's an excellent question, and I think that what we don't do as patients is empower ourselves, and we need to. Doctors are not God. They don't have all the answers. And so, I mean, a simple practical thing to do, track your symptoms daily in a very clear way. Choose what symptoms you're tracking, make a nice measurement, and then track those every day. So that when you go to your appointment, remember the doctor sees you maybe, 4 times a year?
Yeah.
You live with your condition 24 hours a day. You know more than they do about how you are and how it's showing up in your body.
And how you feel.
And how you feel and how it's impacting you and your family. But keep it on record, because we think we'll remember, but we don't. So that when you go, you're empowered with all the answers. List your questions before you go to your session with the doctor, so that you've got all those questions written down, because we forget. We get nervous, it's emotional, you're not feeling great, you think you're going to remember, you're not.
You don't.
So simple things like that, but also knowledge is power. So do the reading. Google Scholar is a fantastic thing. Do the reading. Yeah.
And bring the right people around you. And I love the fact that you have engaged your strategic network in a massive way. And if anything, if there is a silver lining to the last 2 years that we've experienced, it's shown us that what we can do with the medical might, if we combine our forces and our intellectual might and our focus, we can literally achieve anything like a vaccine within a year. So we can do something about this. We just need that collective push and might, and you're very much a part of that.
Absolutely, and as you said, with COVID, you know, we now have access globally to international doctors like that, which is fantastic. So the General Trust is also working very closely with the PVRI, which is the Pulmonary Vascular Research Institute, and I'm part of a task force there around patient empowerment on a global level. So to try and shift the needle, to get the pharmaceutical companies to give us the drugs at a reasonable price. This is really important. You know, we can't afford them.
Lives are literally in the balance. Good luck for the next few days. I know it's going to be a really important one for you, and I hope you get a moment in all of that just to enjoy what you've achieved so far, because there are some successes in that journey. But thank you so much for joining us again. An opportunity for all of us at the moment to spread some awareness within the medical field itself, or to empower ourselves as patients. We're going to continue this discussion in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, you beautiful souls. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. As we continue our medical discussion this morning, we are talking about, or at least hoping to educate as many people about pulmonary hypertension ahead of World Pulmonary Hypertension Day, and that's this Thursday. And we are joined now by the chairperson of a Pulmonary Hypertension Association of South Africa, Calista Greef. And Calista is also the mother of Eben, who is a PH patient, and right there on the green couch. Eben, hoe gaan het groot man?
Goed.
He's ready for the early morning. Calista, are you ready for the early morning? I would imagine you are, because you've got a young bundle of joy that you've got to deal with every morning. I love that. Calista, thank you so much for joining us. I've obviously had the opportunity to talk to some experts in the space, and chatting to Gabby, who I know you know incredibly well, Dr. Simons, who I know you guys know as well. There is a community around the small number of people that are dealing with something that is so extreme. Before we get into pulmonary hypertension as a medical condition and how you've survived that, I just want a reality check here for people. Okay, so you were relating a story to me briefly about going into COVID and not being able to get hold of medication. Now, if any of you thought that you had a nervous moment during this time, during the past 2 years, how did you manage the last 2 years with the added pressure of COVID looking after Eben?
Well, I think it's quite scary knowing that things have changed and there's been restrictions on everything, and your child's medical needs are the same. And if that is not managed, it can escalate very quickly. So it's quite a daunting task, not knowing what can change next. So,
and as you were saying, that medication wasn't being able to be imported. The stakes are so high. How do you deal with that? How do you cope with every day being not just okay, do I drink a Coke or do I drink something up, but every day is a massive decision, a massive push. How do you find the strength, and what drives you?
Well, I think a good realization is that not everything is in your hands, and you can do what you can do, but you can't do everything. So to really be diligent and faithful to what you need to do, and to try and to foresee the different types of risks and things that can happen, but then you can only do as much. So then to have faith that it'll be okay, and you will know what to do then, and yeah, try to do your very best.
Every day has to be a push and a drive, I would imagine. What do you do in the face of a medical condition where there are very few answers in terms of treatments? Even the drugs are massively expensive, and I would imagine even with support, still a challenge. How do you approach day-to-day life with Eben? What is your kind of checklist that you go through?
Well, I think firstly he is a child and a person. So to look at quality of life and things, what is important for Eben today, and to look at the overall umbrella and what could be influencing that. But that's such a very big field, and it's difficult to navigate through the different things that are important and urgent, because you do need to look at things like occupational therapy or speech therapy or impairments or things. But if he is not okay today to be able to do that, he only has as much energy and emotional capacity to do different things, and he goes to school, and yeah, he's a well-rounded person. So to treat him as a whole person and not just a rare disease patient is important.
And make sure that the quality of life is there. The infrastructure around you needs to be good, hence why you have formed this community, or formed part of what sounds like a community that is really empowered at the moment, and obviously heading towards a very special day this Thursday, being World Pulmonary Hypertension Day. What does this community need? Where are the pressure points? What support do you need, and what do you need parents out there in this position to know?
Well, I think the creating awareness is really important, especially amongst medical professionals, so that more people can be diagnosed, because you will not be able to get more medications. Like, there is no pediatric approved medication available in South Africa. So he is on a medication that there has been clinical studies on, but it's not approved for pediatric use, and he's also on an adult dosage since he's weighed 20 kilograms. I don't know any adults that weigh 20 kilograms, but it's just part of the studies is available, but there's a lot of risks, and you have to mitigate between that, and between yourself and the doctors then decide what risks are you willing to take and what are you not willing to take. So the more patients there are, the more you can advocate and get more drugs in and available, and that would lower the costs as well. So the creating awareness is the most important thing for the quality of life for all of the patients, as well as them doing studies and all kinds of things to try and find cures or possible ways of reversing some of the side effects. But they're creating awareness and getting a bigger community, especially medical community, involved would make all the difference.
Yeah, it's been amazing to me to hear how little even medical practitioners, GPs, know about that. So we will do whatever we can to spread the word. Eben, have an amazing day, my friend. Keep looking after this one, because she is a gem. I think you've scored a very good mother. Almost as good as mine, but she's a good one. Thank you so much for doing this on a daily basis, not just for obviously yourself, but for every family out there that is going through this. We really appreciate it. Good luck over the next few days. I know you guys have got a big job on your hands, and we'll do whatever we can to help spread awareness as well. Eben, it's been lovely meeting you, my friend. And I think we all have an opportunity now, not just over the next couple of days, but I think over the entire extent of this year, to try and just be more aware and share in that knowledge. And I think what I've picked up on most importantly is empower ourselves, learn yourself, empower yourself as a patient, and you can do more. But thank you, Calista and Eben, so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.